Yo, it's the Good Life Podcast, the Kickback. It's your boy, Goodlife Russ. I start every show like this, and I would just love to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. This show would not be possible without the listener, the viewership, but more importantly, us having these conversations. This is a podcast about mental health. It's a podcast about family and abundance and resources and forgiveness and healing and loving. But more importantly, it's a podcast about self. We're here to learn ourselves and know ourselves so we can benefit each other better. But more importantly, we benefit the world. So these are my favorite shows. I say it every time because we have a new guest, a first time guest joining the kickback, Miss Liz. We went to college together. So yeah, we go back. We go back. How are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm blessed. I'm very blessed. Got my kids settled. I'm getting my day going and transitioning and inspiring, and it's beautiful out. So I feel really good.
Yes, it is a beautiful day. We had soccer this morning with my 7-year-old. He scored 7 goals. So he was rocking it.
Yo.
Yeah, he was rocking it today. We don't know what we did different this morning, but it was fire. So
Okay, we all need that energy today in our day.
yes.
That's beautiful. Okay, congratulations to that. So how are you
Yeah.
doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing good. I'm having a good day. So I've been doing a lot of work lately. I'm preparing for some art shows coming up.
Okay.
I'm the maker of Wildflower and Flora. I use non-toxic resin and real flowers that I forage for to make one-of-a-kind pieces, and I sell them around Columbus.
So how did you get started in that industry? How did you get started in that field?
Well, I've always been kind of like crafty and doing different artistic things. In college, I started off going for a BFA in photography and advertisement, but I ended up settling into hospitality with learning. I worked in hotels for 5 years while in college, so I switched to hospitality, and that was kind of a degree that I got to really just to get myself going and to um, find a pathway. So I started out with a BFA. I wasn't really feeling it. I played soccer in college, over at Shawnee State. So that's what's up. Um, and I had a hard time doing both. I didn't know that I was struggling with some mental health issues that I am now aware of and am now treated for. So I probably wasn't making the best decisions, the things that I should have been doing. I liked to party a lot. I did, I'll be honest. That was a phase that I had to go through to figure out who I was. And so I jumped through college and ended up with an associate's degree in customer service. I worked in hotels. I wasn't really feeling it. Felt like I was putting on a fake face all the time. We have to be cordial a lot. You have to do what you're told. You have to listen to people. You get yelled at a lot without being able to stand up for yourself. So it's a lot of kind of beating you down quite a bit if you're working for a hotel that allows some of that. It's not that they allow it; it's they can't really control it. Um,
Yeah.
but after all that, I fell into a lot of yoga and finding myself and doing a lot of research on who I was as a person, trying to figure out what my triggers were, what my traumas were, um, what made me the way that I was. And then in 2018, I had um, a mental illness attack. I don't know the best way to say it. I was knocked into psychosis, and nothing is normal in psychosis. So I had to reach out for help. And that was the first time, I had a full experience going and seeking help. I'm glad that the help was there. I was not able to take care of myself. I was not able to support my family. There was nothing that I could do but survive in that moment. And after going through that experience and having things what felt like happened to me, I fell into hiking and going outside to free the mind. I did a lot of outdoor meditation, a lot of foraging for flowers. I started to press flowers. I started to notice more of the things around me, trying to look for the beauty because I felt so much pain at the time. So I was looking for anything to, escape a little bit, to find something different. And after a while, I wanted to do something with the pressed flowers. I thought resin was a cool place to start messing around. Kind of just jumped in, was really bad at the beginning, as most people are at new things. I will say it was everywhere. It was a mess. But I really was able to focus, I felt like, when I was working. It ended up being a major outlet for me, and just then using my hospitality degree and the shows that I go to around Columbus, you have to be able to talk to people. So, although I thought that I was doing that for a different reason, it turns out it was just building my story into being an artist here in Columbus.
Hmm. I love that. That's the beauty of these conversations, because we have no idea what the next person's going through. I think it leads us to living a life of grace, trying to be empathetic and be more understanding of people, because man, we're all on our own journey.
We are, and I definitely have a lot more understanding for people that are going through mental health. It's not a lot of times what we did. It's some of the traumas that have just happened through our life. I'm not going to go into anything specific. I'm not super comfortable, but I would like to say that we're not the bad things that happen to us,
Yes.
and we are able to move on and to create something beautiful from hardships. It's definitely something that's doable. I always, you kind of are drawn to people who have that fighting spirit to, fight back and don't just life have at you, to do something about it. And sometimes it's being aware of your own actions as well. Um,
Mm,
and knowing that although there's traumas that have happened to you, you've probably created traumas for other people, and just being accountable, and just realizing, and it's a conscious behavior to um, want to understand why we're doing these things. I did some outpatient classes through Ohio State University. I highly recommend them. It's not, you're not trapped in a room. You can get up and leave. They're just outpatient classes. If you have any anxiety, depression, or, you just need to learn how to focus on your life a little better. I went there and they taught me a lot about myself, about why some of the reasons I felt the way that I did, why some of my actions were the way that they were. And you just are able to kind of refocus on what is important and what is not necessarily necessary that we were letting get to us, and that we don't really have to sit with. There's all different there's all different things. It was really a beautiful little series that I did. And they really let you openly talk. And it's conversations that we shouldn't just have when we're in like dire need of help. We should be
yes.
having these mental health conversations every day. Really, we should be having them with our children. I try to talk to my
Agreed.
children. I mean, I'm sure they see some of my actions, and I'm not perfect, but I try to just be aware in what I'm doing.
Okay.
I don't have control over everything, unfortunately, but to know that a conversation can get you further than shouting. Just
Yes.
things like that. I I used to be a shouter. I shouted a lot more. I had parents that shouted when I was younger. I didn't realize I had some of those like shouting traumas and that it built up into me until I became a parent. And realize
Mm.
that, you know, some of the behavior from when you're, you know, real little that you're learning, that you then um you act on it and you don't even realize you're doing it. And it's just happening, and then it's just bringing it back to the awareness.
That's 100%. That's
Yeah,
100%. I think that's what the point of the healing journey is. You know, I tell people
absolutely.
all the time, happiness is awareness. It's not a smile on your face. It's not feeling good. It's not feeling motivated. It's knowing what state you're in and
Mhm.
being comfortable, not being ashamed or embarrassed or regretful. I think this whole process, the good and the bad, is us learning ourselves. So we know what we do moving forward, you know, because as kids, we don't know any better. I think you know, I'm not a big believer in forgiveness of other people. I think forgiveness comes for ourselves.
Mm,
Forgiving ourselves for the version of ourselves we had to create. Forgiving ourselves for choices we made that might not be favorable today. You know,
amen.
forgiving ourselves for not knowing any better.
Hmm.
And that growth, that maturity is now you being the knowing. You know better. So
Yes.
you do better.
Yeah, so you do better. And it really, I mean, you have two kids, correct?
I have six.
You have six kids? Okay, I got two kids.
Four
So
girls, two boys, and some bonus kids. I got
woo,
hella
you've
kids.
been
Like it's like
busy.
10 of us.
That's all right. I got a bonus kid too, so they're the best.
Yeah, love
I
them.
feel like kids bring in an extra awareness of if you start seeing some of their behaviors, and then you wonder where it comes from, and then you look in the
Yeah.
mirror and you see that it's you, and you're like,
Oh,
oh no,
wait a minute. It is
wait,
usually what we need to work on, and they keep showing
yes,
us, like, did you fix
yes,
it yet? I'm like, I'm getting around to it. I'm doing it.
yeah, yes, yes, we're getting around to it, but sometimes that's the biggest, like, hey, didn't you just say last week that you shouldn't? And like, darn, you got me.
Yeah. And we needed
um,
that. We
yeah,
needed that.
we
I was
do.
trapped in that for the longest. You know,
Yeah.
I went through that. My second oldest daughter, you know, I went through that with her, and she's 11 right now.
Oh,
So I went through that with her. Things that, you know, aren't the end of the world, but you just have a belief that it should be this way. You don't know where it came from. So for me,
mhm.
it was playing on the couches. You know what I mean? So I used to tell them, like, don't play on the couch, don't sit on certain couches. And then one day this is a while ago. Then one day she just came to me like, why? You know, the couches are for sitting. And I really had to humble myself and think about like why. And
Well,
then I overstood it's because when I was a kid, people were constant telling me no, no,
yeah,
no, no. So then I built that barrier of no.
yeah,
And then it just took her to ask that simple question, but also me to listen, me to give her
absolutely.
that space to ask the question. And then we grew because I'm like, yeah, sit on the furniture. You're right. That's exactly what it's for.
Yes, that is what it's for.
So they humble us, but we have to be ready to be humbled.
Yes, absolutely. If you're not willing to hear, I feel like it could cause a lot of anger because it's a lot of it's a lot of hard things. You know, like I said, I actually went through teacher training for yoga. I'm a certified yoga teacher. And although I
Hey,
don't
congratulations.
Hey, thank you so much. Although I don't necessarily practice currently with the body, I'm still very mindful. I definitely I understand, especially raising kids now, of how just the most simplest thing can be, just it can ripple if we don't catch it, if we don't try to talk about it. You know, since I struggle with mental health myself, it is an open conversation with my 7-year-old. Well, I guess he's 8 now. He just had a birthday. Sorry,
Happy
Bryce.
birthday, little man.
Yeah, he just turned 8. So you know, it's an open conversation, and I think it's allowed him to have other conversations with his schoolmates about when he doesn't like the way that he's being treated, or if he had a friend that kept like fun punching him, like just in the
Uh,
arm, like, you know, like, hey
yeah.
dude, like over, but he's just not that kid. He
Yeah.
prefers not to have someone do anything to him. So he had to speak up for himself and he had to talk about it. He had to initiate a calm conversation and not just, jump to, everything's on fire. To,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I can already see where, um, being more self-aware myself is letting my son have some awareness, in other situations where he's making better decisions and not, turning to hit or yelling at
Mm.
somebody or trying to get back at them, stuff like that. And we've had conversations about, should, telling, should I tell friends not to play with other friends, stuff like that, and that seems so, like, so simple to us, but really that's a big deal, teaching them already, like making everybody inclusive and to not, to try to like get people to, disassociate with each other. And I just feel like
Yeah.
it's so important to have those conversations, and it's amazing to see him grow and to kind of know what he's doing. At least I think he thinks he knows.
Yeah.
But he is, and we were all kids once too, and we're just
Yeah.
kind of running when we're kids. But I definitely think that the new generation has a little bit more of an understanding. They've been through a pandemic. They had to
Yeah.
understand. There were certain things when we were trying to protect others, why we're the selflessness, certain things
Mhm.
like that, and just why it was important, why we did what we did, why other people were more protective than others because they had illnesses. We
Mhm.
explained all of that. So my son at the age of 5 were talking to adults about it perfectly fine. And it was,
Mhm.
I don't know, I feel like it was a different experience for us than maybe it was for others because, he understood so well, just of being, aware of other people and their feelings. And I just appreciate
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
And I think that is a big plus in this new generation, especially I can speak from experience with the boys.
Hmm.
Something we didn't have when I was a little boy. Two major things that I feel like make us human and make us not animals or machines. And one is emotional intelligence, and
Yes.
then the second is conflict resolution, which in school we're taught problem solving, and that's not the same as conflict resolution. So these new boys, I'm starting to see something in them that a few of us had back in the day, but it's vital. As a boy, just saying like, "Yo, this hurt my feelings," or
Yes.
"I'm not okay with that,"
Hmm.
and I'm not upset with you. I don't think you're a bad person,
Hmm.
but that's my truth. Like that hurt my feelings. Don't do that,
Yeah.
and meaning that, but meaning it in a way we can still be friends. I'm just educating you now.
Yes. Yes. It's a huge part. I really, applaud you on applying that to your children. That's, beautiful to know that other men are empowering little boys to share their feelings, and know that it's okay to speak up and say something. This isn't snitches get stitches. This is,
Right,
I have feelings and I matter.
right.
So it's not necessarily, going to tell a teacher, but like standing up for yourself and knowing that you're capable of doing it. And something that my mom told me a long time ago too, that it really stuck with me is, especially if your child's being bullied or anything, like on the playground or anything, like you are the number one advocate for your child. So if you don't stand up for your child and you're the number one person, do you think they're going to stand up for themselves?
Right.
If they don't know that the parent is backing them. And I mean, if you have to show up and make a butt of yourself or whatever because it's a big deal because your kid doesn't want to go to school anymore, then you show up and make a butt of yourself. It just,
Yep.
I'm not saying be violent or anything like that, but you need to speak up. We have to be, if we're loud about it, they have to hear us about, especially bullying in school. I don't do bullies. I don't do
Me either.
bullies. I can't stand it. I will stand up every time. I have approached strangers about it. I can't watch somebody be picked on and just watch them crumble inside. It changes you as a person. It's a traumatic experience. It does things to people. We cannot let it happen. And so I am a strong advocate for my son, for his friends. I'll stand up for any of them. And it's really having the conversation that I don't like it. Please don't do it. And if it keeps happening, then, you need to let your parent know. And then we will have a conversation. And then, we keep having conversations until it's dealt. We don't just have a conversation and end. You need to
Right.
continue, follow through, because that's the
Yes.
biggest things that our kids are going to remember is our follow through. Um, and just, who was there, and, that they are worth more than being treated
Mm-hmm.
like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and not trying to make them, cocky and think that they're this amazing person. Well,
Right.
they are an amazing person, but
Yeah.
not trying to fill the void here. We're just saying, like, it's okay to have good self-esteem. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to think you're doing okay. And I wish I would have known that sooner about myself. I don't think that that was
Mm-hmm.
something that was popular in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It
I
wasn't. It
was,
wasn't.
yeah, it wasn't. And especially, I guess I'll touch base just a little bit. I was one of the first biracial kids in the 90s. So there weren't too many of us popping out yet. My parents experienced racism when they were living in North Carolina. Tell them to go back where they came from. My
Wow.
parents heard all that stuff. They were a mixed couple in the 80s. And in the 90s, it wasn't even that much better. So, I mean, they have loads of stories that they can tell of people, not helping them because of who they were. So being a mixed baby born in the 90s, it was very confusing, because there, like they said, there wasn't a lot of things like for me. So I really relied in on sports and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I didn't really find myself emotionally until I got older, because I don't think there was anything for me to connect to. And, I often, to be honest, I often felt that I was too black for the white people and too white for the black people. So, and I know
Mm-hmm.
that can be really hard to hear, but I I felt it inside because I didn't feel home really anywhere. I felt stuck in the middle. I heard things said about both sides because people would tell you things on both sides. And I hate that there's sides. I'm in the middle. I love both my parents.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I'm that kid that's probably the peaceful person fighting for equality and race, since I was a little kid, because I love both my parents.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard growing up. we had we'd fill out forms all the time, and they'd ask you what race you are and things like that, and they would like pressure you to pick one. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
I was raised to not. And my parents actually raised me to write human on my forms. um
Nice.
yeah. So it was interesting, being mixed, growing up and just developing my feelings of where I fit in society. um yeah, it was interesting. I feel like there might be a few kids that can relate to that. I know there's a lot more interracial marriages now,
Mm-hmm.
which is dope. I'm in one as well. I
Nice.
have little mixed babies too. So I love, and I love what it can do. It can break down barriers. But we obviously, think we still have a problem here in America, and we're just trying to work through it. But I still feel in the middle sometimes. And
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that.
I think I would agree with you. And
Mhm.
I can see in ways that many of us have played into the problem. And
Yes.
I think what's going on, the misunderstanding is because there's so many people that's hurting, and everyone wants their wounds to be attended to first before they go assist someone else with their hurting. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I think the only way that we overcome that is we got to start coming together for positivity and
Yes.
celebration and happiness, and not just trauma and torment and pain and hurt. You know, that's a lot of what we relate on as people. We relate to suffering. That's to me, suffering is the thing that makes us all human. It's what makes us all identical. And then our ability to heal is what changes us. It puts some of us on the left, some on the right. So I think the more as we all get on this healing journey, we can start coming together about that,
Yeah.
sharing healthy practices, healthy tips, healthy parenting. It's a lot of why I wanted to do this show. I feel like in our isolated groups and our parties, our cookouts, our kickbacks, our family settings, we have very, very intelligent, healthy conversation. But those conversations don't trickle to the masses. Everyone needs to be hearing this dialogue. Everyone needs to hear this transparency. But more importantly, everyone needs to hear people's feelings. You
Yes.
know, what you said was ugly. What you said was unnecessary. What you said hurt my friend. They
Hmm.
need to hear that. And it's not so you can hear that and feel sorry about yourself. It's so you get perspective. Because again, we're all living a different experience.
Yes. A huge different experience. And I think about that often when I meet people of just um I love how different people are. I always say in my art, I use humanity and flowers, of course, so the beauty of nature, and then humanity to make my pieces, and that's why I make them to be one of a kind, because I think that everyone is one of a kind and everyone deserves a one of a kind piece. So I
Mhm.
really stick to that with my art. I dig the one of a kind. I feel like we should promote it more,
Yes.
that, about ourselves, that,
Yeah.
this is the only me that you're gonna get. So, this is me. And yeah, I know it sounds so cheesy.
I
I
love
know.
it though. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. So, but that's how I feel with my art, though, that, I'm putting
Okay.
myself out there, and it does, you know, I it can hurt sometimes if it's not like a good show. You can feel rejected,
Yeah.
but it comes with the territory. I've learned to appreciate it, to kind of form my path with it, just to kind of know what is best for me and what I'm doing. There's a lot to learn from the things that we don't succeed from. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of things. Um, but it's just, yeah, there's just a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Life is a learning experience. This whole
Yeah, it's a learning
journey. And
experience.
just when we think we got it figured out, life
Yeah.
is like, nope.
No, it changes it up all the time. And,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, I really hope that if anything comes from this, that is that people understand that, we're not our mental illnesses. And we are able to do something about it and to try to change and try to help the next generation. If they're going through something similar, we can pass on that information, and that it's also okay to go get help. It's not something that should be shunned. I know in several cultures it is. And I've met a lot of different people. It doesn't pick a race, it doesn't pick a gender, it doesn't pick a height, a weight. It doesn't matter who you are. It's just sometimes we need a little extra help, and it's okay. I'm someone who is medicated now, and I live my life better because I am able to get through each day better. I would get nothing done if I was sleeping in bed all day, which
Right.
is, what I wanted to do when I was so depressed I couldn't get out of bed. But I always had the fight to get back up. And I hope that that continues, because, I can still have some bad days, but they're not as bad as they were. And that's very hopeful.
Mhm.
To find that little bit of hope really in anything, it can really get you through.
Yes, I definitely agree.
Hmm.
And we find new things to help us get through. We find new things that help identify us. So, mentioning that, what's your love journey like? What's your love life like? Are you two are married?
I am married. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Hmm.
I adore my husband. He is a great man. He does a lot for the family. He actually does like the morning stuff for our son to go to school and stuff like that. He gets all the props. He does all of that for us. And I kind of just come through and like the organizing one. So it's definitely a teamwork effort. We've been together, let's see, it's been 13 years, but married
Nice.
for 8 years.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely a long-term relationship by
Yeah.
now. Yeah. So
Yeah. I was speaking on this earlier, as far as relationships and marriage, and you got to keep learning the person and learn new ways to love them.
absolutely. We've been through our own journeys and then we've been through our journey together. And it's adapting to really adapting to the situation. He had a child when he was 18. So I have a 17-year-old stepdaughter. Um,
Okay.
and we had to really come together to, know that our relationship was going to work. Before we had children, we just had to figure out the details and all of that. And then bringing the children were just amazing, just step 2 and 3.
Yeah.
We started with Kelly and then my stepdaughter. And then we had Bryce, who 8 years ago. And then we had Liam, and he'll be 2 in August. So we have a little
Oh,
babe in the house. But we've had our ups and downs, but we've always learned to never go to bed mad at each other.
yes.
And also, someone gave me advice, this old man, a long time ago at a wedding. He told me to, if you ever get in a fight, to fight naked because you would never be able to keep your attention the whole time, especially if you're attracted to your spouse, that it's going
Yeah.
to end differently than you probably think it's going to if you just take all your clothes off. So, I'm not going to say I live by it all the time, but it works. It has some play.
It's been helpful.
It's been
Perfect.
helpful. So, um, but just to remember to be playful, I would say is the biggest
Yeah.
thing with marriage. We're very, very playful with each other. And I definitely, it keeps the spark going because like 2 Fridays ago we went dancing. We go to
Okay.
Damn Girl Columbus. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
It's like a 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s remixed retro music. And we're old, so we we go early and start the dance floor, and then by the time we leave it's a huge crowd and everyone's going crazy. And then we just go home. So we like to have fun, but we very much know how old we are and know that we need to go to bed, because the children will wake up whether we're ready or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready to go. Full
Yeah.
energy. Like, where'd you get this energy from?
And it always seems to happen when you're the tiredest the next day.
Yeah. It's
It
like they took
always,
your
you're just
energy.
like,
Like, hold up, what's
yeah,
happening
like what
here?
is happening? So, but I will say relationships are a beautiful thing.
Yes.
I've had the benefit of meeting a lot of different people. And I really appreciate each person that I've met has left an imprint on me. And I think about them when I do different things, and especially when I make my art, I think about them often, and just finding things that inspire me. It's so easy. It feels easy to me because there's just so much to be inspired about. I know,
Hmm.
life is hard and we go through all different things, but if we can really try to focus on what's going good and the good things, it's not that bad. It's pretty good, because there's some pretty joyful things, especially watching I have my 21-month-old has like a gap between his teeth, and so
Oh,
when he smiles with these big teeth, oh my gosh, you want to mm, I can't live without it. So
oh,
I hold on to those moments, and it really gets you through, especially, I think that people go through different things, and even if you don't have depression, you've probably been depressed before.
yeah,
And it feels a lot the same, just one, um it, well, it may not be as easy to get out of it, but one's
yeah,
not a chemical thing that's completely happening to you unless you've triggered it with that trauma. So
yeah.
yeah, so you can definitely trigger it, and then the chemicals start producing, and you're just down and about. um
Hmm.
but I don't remember where I was going with this.
No, and I think because you landed
Yeah.
at a good point, and I think
Yeah.
so I believe in duality. I don't believe anything is inherently good or bad. I think everything has good or bad in it. So I
Yeah.
think when we start getting into mental health and identifying, who we are, becoming aware of our awareness, which was been my journey. See, a lot of people don't know about me. I'm on the autistic spectrum. So
Oh, I
I've
didn't
dealt
know.
with that my whole life, and you wouldn't be
Mhm.
able to tell because all the
Mm-mm.
work and things I've done throughout my life. When I was a kid, you would have been able to tell. So now I tell people the opposite of the depression and hurting, the mental health is grace. We don't give ourselves enough grace,
Mm-mm.
and I've been depressed. My oldest son passed away. So like
I'm
going
so
through
sorry.
that experience. Thank you for saying that.
Mhm.
Going through that experience, I had to show myself what was good about me. Why am
Yeah.
I here on earth? What
Amen
value
to
do I
that.
have? Why
Yes.
would people want to talk to me? Why would someone want to love me? Like I had to prove that to myself because I never answered those questions. I just, when you're young, when you have that arrogance, you just have it. You
Mhm.
can't explain it. It's just there. You just know you're good, but you couldn't tell
Yeah.
somebody. So when it came time to remind myself, I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what I was doing good, and I had to start giving myself grace just for waking up this morning, just for the door I held open for this older lady, for this man. And I'm like, you know what, your shoes look nice. Like you look really good today. Just those little moments to where we
Absolutely.
are putting love into the world because love conquers everything, in my
It
opinion.
does. It does. I live in those moments. That's all I
Yeah,
live about. Just the other day, I get frustrated easily though, which I'm that's something that I'm working on. I get frustrated because I see, people not wanting to take a moment to hold a door for someone. I
yeah.
see those things, and it was a couple days ago. I was going to the postal office, and there was an old man with a walker struggling in the door. The door was closing on him, and I watched this man look at him, and then walk straight past him, and my heart sunk. And
Mm.
I was like, no way. So I jumped out of the car and took off running to the door like like a crazy person, to make sure that this old man could get through the door. He was so sweet. And he was so grateful that I was there. And it really it upset me for I want
Yeah,
to say like 15 minutes, because I couldn't fathom what was going on in that other person's life, that they felt like that they couldn't open the door for another person,
yeah,
especially someone who was struggling. um you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
maybe we're not, all the time aware, maybe we don't open every door. I'm not saying, be a people pleaser, because that can be dangerous too.
yeah,
Being a people pleaser. I've been there, done that. um but just, what's going on with us that we're not finding those little moments and taking them, because like you said, they're expressions of joy, they're expressions of love. It's putting that energy out there, and saying that I want to live in this love energy and just be around it, and I hope that giving it out will then pass it to go further.
yes,
I love ripple effects. I
Me
love
too.
the pay it forward stuff.
Yeah.
I feed off of that stuff.
Yeah.
Especially working with my art. When I have people come back to me, to my booth, I see a lot of return customers, and when they come back, they're beaming because they receive so many compliments.
Mm.
And they're like, I've never had so many compliments before. And so I don't know if I should change my slogan to selling compliments, but it sounds like a good selling
I
point.
like that.
Yeah, selling compliments. Because I make these one of a kind, bright pieces that really stand out, and people notice them, and I've seen people's confidence, go up a little bit wearing something how you wear like diamonds or something, you feel
Yeah.
a little better, stuff like that. I get that from my customers. I can feel that they're vibing with it, and that's a lot of fuel to my fire to see the joy spreading, because my joy is making them, and then I want there to be joy passed along to them as they're purchasing, and that they're feeling this continuous, because it's those little things, the this is only mine and no one else has this. Those, I feel like those are the things that get us through the hardships,
Yeah.
that remind us that not everything is bad. I can think of a million bad things going on right now, but I can also
Right.
think of a million good things that are going on right now.
Right.
And I appreciate that they're there. Of course I wish the other, but you know, they always say, do you know happiness without sadness? Do you know what it's like to succeed without failure? We're
Right.
not sure, because it takes one for the other. So it's like you have to have both. So although, it's trying and things like that, I just the balance, it just seems like a balance, and I try to sit with that, to know that some things, I guess, have to happen to us for us to learn, and to bounce back. To be able to climb up a mountain, you have to be in a valley. Things like
Yeah.
that, you have to. My dad says it is what it is. But my mom says, but it doesn't have to stay there. So my parents really balance each other out.
Yes.
So it is what it is, but it doesn't have to stay there. So so that's
And both
really,
are true.
yeah, both are true. Both are so true, but they're so different. But so I just take it together. I take the mix of it,
Yeah. Yeah. And
and
that's
that's
and
where I
that's
move.
our lives.
Yeah,
Sometimes we feel like we have too much or not enough, but to me, I'm with your dad. It is what it is. We're where we're supposed to be, and you're doing what you're supposed to do. So that means we can't get too caught up on the highs, and we can't dwell on the lows, because both outcomes will get you a response. I've
yeah.
walked into buildings with a sad face, and people approach me, want to give me a hug. I walked in buildings with a smile, and people approach me like I needed to see that smile today. Like my day has been horrible, and your
Mhm.
smile has turned it around. So it's not always the reaction we get, you know what I mean, or the response, but it's, are you being true to yourself?
Yeah.
If you're having a rough day, you don't have to mask a smile. You don't have
No.
to say hi to everyone and be over what you're feeling. And when you're joyful and energetic, you don't have to dim that light. You don't have to dumb that
Mm-mm.
down. Be happy.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I feel like the more we learn these things as a society, we're really learning them as individuals, but we're bringing them together. I think we're social creatures. I think it would be hard for us to really be happy and not experience these moments with other people. So the more we do that, it's not always sunshine and gumdrops. Sometimes you feel drained. Sometimes you feel anxious. Sometimes you still want that isolation. So how is it for you? Would you consider yourself more introvert or extrovert or both?
I would say I'm both.
Okay.
I have my moments where I am that, you know, go-getter, like, hey, the hugger, the let's have a
Yeah.
good time. I've definitely been that person, but I definitely have an introvert side as well. Um that I like to kind of remember what being home is, and just
Yeah.
being comfortable, and not having to, not that I put on a fake face, but like you don't have to be any sort of a way when you're, home.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're not responsible for other people's feelings or happiness.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's just, I've definitely learned that home is like a safe place. And I'm glad that I've created an atmosphere that me and my family kind of feel that way, because we feel like we can openly express ourselves in our home. And I really appreciate having a partner that allows that, and is willing to have those hard conversations. We don't agree on everything. Um,
Hmm.
he was raised differently than I was, a little bit more, I think, strict. His
Okay.
parents were in the Salvation Army.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
so it was just very orderly, and very like brass instruments, and
Yeah.
just a different type. Um,
Yeah.
and I was more of your like non-denominational, like flowing hippie. So
Shout out to the
we are a
hippies.
little different, and I had to break him a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
he was a little tight.
Yeah.
um,
Unclench. That's
yeah,
that yoga. Loosen
yeah,
up a little bit.
yeah. So yes. So we've definitely learned to appreciate each other for who we are, but
Yes.
we're becoming the parents as well. Like, we're parents, and we're becoming adults as we get older. I mean, we are adults, but like aging, the way that we age. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always think of, we watch our kids grow up, but our kids also watch us grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a different perspective. And I try to think about that, while that, how am I growing up in front of my kids? I hope that I'm a good example. And don't have too much of an attitude, but
Yeah. Seems
we'll
like
see
you're
how much
doing it right.
coffee I drink.
Yeah, seems like you're doing it right. And I love that you said that, because it's beautifully put. And I think what a lot of adults are learning is the kids have it figured out. The kids can love us through the growing up process because they don't have an expectation of who we are growing up to be.
Hmm.
Sometimes parents, we do our kids a disservice because we're trying to push them in a certain direction. And I
Hmm.
give my kids all the game, all the education, but I can't control if they use it or what they do with it. I just have to have the faith that they're going to do what's best for them with that information. So they may never play a sport. They may never be an astronaut. They may never be president, but I'll still love them the same no matter what
Hmm.
they end up doing,
Yep.
because that is the way kids love their parents. They love you no matter who you become.
Yes. Yes, I 100% agree with that.
So I think now we're realizing, as much as we've been so gung ho, you got to teach your kids and raise your kids, we got to allow them to teach and raise us too.
Absolutely. I learned lessons all the time. I it came up where my son had a kid in our neighborhood wasn't being very nice. And I said something, because I wasn't good. I watched, in a matter of seconds, I watched my happy-go-lucky son just instantly in his feelings, like, because a kid said
Mm,
something to him. And it was just something as easy as, "You can't play with us." You know what I
mm,
mean? Just being rude.
yeah,
I know it's not a huge deal, but we we're friends with these with people, and that's not how we treat our friends.
right.
So, and unfortunately, you have stuff that happens, and you lose connections. And I hope that everyone, learns um that you can come back to those connections.
Yes,
So, and I'm still hoping that, we're able to put back, and glue that relationship back together. But I don't know. But I know that my son didn't have feelings of being hurt anymore, because he saw someone say something about it, that wasn't how someone was supposed to be treated. And he just I don't know, I watched him bounce back faster because we had the conversation about it and we
Okay.
talked about it. And we talked of why we don't do things like that. And it's really just having the conversation like we talked about. Just having it, even if it seems excessive, just keep having the conversation. Having the conversation about things, whether it's growing up or even if let them feel safe enough that they can bring something up to you about um, the way that you're acting. If my child
Yeah.
says to me, hey, you feel very agitated, are you okay, mom? Well, then he's obviously noticing, and it deserves some interaction. They're looking to connect, to know how you're feeling, and like you said, they're watching us grow up, and it can be overwhelming for us as well,
Yeah.
trying to grow up as adults. I feel like we have a lot of challenges, but like we said, that joy stuff, it's the good stuff. The
Yeah.
good kickback.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's protecting that peace. It's not letting
Yeah.
anything steal our joy,
No, not at all.
because we can also do ourselves a disservice by being good parents and trying to be everything our kid needs, which is not
Mhm.
realistic. It's not practical. My
Mm-mm.
oldest son, he prefers to talk to his mom about like crushes and stuff, and I'm cool with that. It would be dope to talk about. I would love to talk about it, but the most important thing to me is that he has someone to talk to.
Yes.
That's the resolution. It's not always going to be me. And I may feel I have the answers. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
to him I do.
Yeah.
He needs to be comfortable with his outlet. And he comes and talks
Absolutely.
about to me about the things he feels comfortable with. And
Hmm.
this is something I learned as a father. Maybe this would be my daughters that come talk to me about
Maybe. Do
them
you want
crushing or them.
that?
I'm terrified. I'm terrified. But I want it, and I want it because a lot of times when it comes to parenting, people try to overcorrect their child because they don't have a connection to the other party involved. And when it comes to little girls, for me, from a man standpoint, there's going to be things that happen with my daughter and other people that I don't necessarily feel my daughter's in the wrong. So I
Hmm.
want to be living in a standpoint and come with the correct words so that every party benefits from what I have to say. Not me just showing up like, oh, I'm worried about my child and their emotional state and what's going on with them. I want this message to resonate with everyone. You know what I mean? Because this other kid could have never got this lesson. They could not have a father in the home. I don't know what's going on. So if I
That's true.
just jump off the deep end,
Hmm.
I'm creating a bigger problem. I'm part of the problem, not a part of the solution. I deal because my youngest is a girl. She's 3, so I deal with the same thing, and she's very intelligent. You know what I mean? So as she's in her school and as she's doing her tutoring, she's in classes with older kids. So you know how kids are, and little boys just are little boys. You dig?
Hmm.
So what you said, I agree with 100%. I make sure every time I need to, I'm up at that school. If I need to talk to a parent, a teacher,
Yeah.
a child, we having this conversation. And I
Yeah,
tell the teachers
absolutely.
as well, my loyalty is to my child, but I want to see every kid grow in this situation. I don't want a kid to be punished and want to learn. I want everyone to
No.
learn because these are teachable moments. I don't think kids are bad. I think they're
Mhm.
kids. They don't know any better, and they're
Right.
learn like that's how a kid learns the world. We wander through the world and we pick up things and we
Mhm.
learn from some things and other things we don't feel is a problem. So we're not looking for a solution. So what I'm here to do is seek truth and understanding. You know what I mean? Again, something we weren't really taught in school. See, we were taught facts in school, but what people don't understand is fact and truth are two completely different things.
Absolutely.
And a lot of what is our truth, we try to pass off as facts. You dig what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
two things can be true. Someone could meant what they said, and your feelings could be hurt by what they said. Two things can be true. That doesn't make anyone wrong or right. That means we have to try to find an understanding. So when we dig deep into these understandings, if you don't already live your life this way, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you're trying to tell your kid, well, you need to study, you need to, but you don't study and do those things, that's the issue. We have to lead by example. We have to become the people we want to see in the world.
Yep.
This love, this positivity, we have to put that out forth. And then we can advise others to do this. But for the majority, I just tell people what I would do. I don't tell them what I think they should do. I don't say this is right, this is wrong. I give them perspective. I give them options. I think that is where we got into a lot of trouble as kids. It wasn't that we had bad intentions. It was that we get to this crossroad, this fork in the road. We only got one option. Your one option is violence. Your one option is cut somebody out. Your one option is
Hmm.
shut down. You know what I mean? And you have to give yourself more options. You have to give that's why I do therapy. That's why I got into psychology. It's to show people, yo, you have an option. You could have said A, you could have said B, and then my favorite option, which we should exercise the most, is C. You could have said nothing at all.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to respond. You know
No.
what I mean? And that's taking our life back, not feeling obligated to get even or explain ourselves or speak our minds. Living your truth. Everyone doesn't have to acknowledge your truth as the truth. You know what I mean? But if they want to be a part of your life, if they want to build in your life, they have to find some level of understanding. Y'all have to learn to meet each other on common ground. So as much as I push my kids to, try to be friends with this kid, I also show them this kid might not want to be friends with you.
Yeah.
You can't make everyone be nice to you. I'm sorry. I wish you
No.
could. You can't make
No.
everyone love you. I wish you could, but you
Yeah.
can't. That's out of
That's
your
a hard
hands.
lesson too. That's a hard lesson because you can't teach that. You have to just learn it. I don't think there's a way to teach that.
Yeah.
Some people just aren't going to like the way that you are. You may not vibe with other people, but it doesn't mean that you have to be mean to them, is what I
Yes.
tell my child. um just because they're different. I saw someone walk by and I said hello to them, and they were dressed a little different. This was a few days ago, and I say different. It was normal to them. They're normal.
Right,
Um,
right.
and somebody across from me went to go make fun of them. And I felt less for the people that were making fun of them because they were just expressing themselves. They did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. And we jumped so quick to just attack. And I couldn't fathom what caused the trauma in them to react like that when they saw someone who they thought was different.
Hmm.
Why is that do you think that's systematically like in us to fight
I
against
think
the
it's
negative?
psychological. I think it's psychological. I don't think a lot of people look towards the bigger picture. I think they're just focused on
Okay.
their corner. So when you're focused on your corner, you feel someone else's happiness and success threatens yours. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
it's funny. Literally, I was talking about this Thursday on my show. Like this is a common theme. I'm starting to explain to my mentees and my sons. You know what I mean? When you get to the point of learning to accept and love yourself, there's no reality to where you're going to feel better about yourself by putting someone else down.
Hmm.
There's no reality to where we all can't win. But if you have this idea that them winning is going to prevent you from winning, you're going to sabotage what they're doing. If you have this idea that you're not secure with who you are as a person, you won't be able to accept who they were as a person because who they are now threatens who you are because you have no idea. So if this young man is now saying he's gay, you as another man, a straight man, feel threatened because this questions your identity.
Sure.
Oh, well, he likes basketball like me. He likes hamburgers like me. He likes the color red like shit. I might be gay too. You know what I mean? Like you don't, but it's frustrating because you don't know.
Yeah.
So what I do, what helps me, this is why I say when we heal ourselves, it's actually healing the dynamic with other people. When we become better in the relationship with ourselves, it strengthens our relationships with others. I have these hard questions for myself, so now I don't have to hold it against the next person. When
Yes.
I was younger, I would ask myself, you know what I mean? Well, you know what? Hell, do you like men? And before I could finish that, I'm like, absolutely not. And I did that to know myself, not to
Mhm.
shame anyone else, not to judge anyone else. So
No.
now when I get in predicaments, most men have been in, when I get hit on by a gay guy, I'm not offended. I'm not ready to be violent or upset
No.
because I know who I am.
Yeah.
So who you are doesn't threaten me. I love women more than anything on this earth. So who you are should never threaten who I am, especially
Yeah.
if you're being respectful with who you are. If you're not trying to convert me over to how you believe,
Yes.
I
Yes.
shouldn't be upset. You know what I
No.
mean? But if I don't know who I am, everyone who knows themselves threatens who I am.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? It
I get what you're saying.
triggers that constant question. Well, would you? Well, could you? And I already answer those questions for myself. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I don't bring them into my relationship. Well, if she did this, would you break up with her? I already answered all that. I'm here for the long haul. So
Mhm.
absolutely not. But that doesn't negate the fact I'm going to educate her. And I'm educating her out of love, not out of spite. I'm not saying this because I'm upset. And this is the duality. I tell people on the other end too. This person's not walking away to spite you, to hurt you, and to get back at you. They're walking away because they didn't feel appreciated. They're
Mhm.
walking away because they didn't feel loved. They're walking away because everything they were prepared to do for you, they don't feel like it was reciprocated. So I'm
Mhm.
not leaving to teach you a lesson. You dig what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
the musician her said it perfectly. She said, either learn me or I'm the lesson. So you're going to learn how to love me and learn how to respect me, or I have to take myself away. You're going to have to feel my absence. And again, it's not to hurt you, but it's your loss because I came bringing love. I came
Yeah.
bringing clarity. I came bringing, oh man, I ain't got nowhere to stay. I ain't got no money. Oh, come over here. The couch is good. Like, come on, you got it. You know what I mean? Oh, I can't get to work this morning. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll come get you. That's what you're losing. And if you don't feel that's important to you, awesome. But
Mm.
most people, they start to regret what they had when they lost it because now you realize your life has to be different. So the
Yes.
angle I come, I want to establish that in the beginning. Let's look at each other for who we are. And if we can make each other better, let's live under that. But
Mm.
let's not have all these separate lives because this is where a lot of us get in trouble. We have friends A and friends B, and they're two different types of friends.
Yeah.
So either you start treating A group like B group or B group like A group. Either way, it's not healthy. You have to treat people how they are. So
Mhm.
first, you got to get to know them. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And second, you got to care. It has to be important to you that everyone has the same treatment. And we've gotten into this comfortable space where a lot of people are more comfortable with receiving than giving. See, me, I'm a giver. You know what I mean? I've been a giver my whole life. I think this is the season and era of the givers. Givers are becoming selfish. We've been giving everything, and we tired, and we're drained, and it didn't work. So it's not, again, we're not doing this now to prove a point or to get back at people. We're doing it because we tried the other way and it didn't work. So
Yes.
now we're going to try this way. Now I'm going to put myself first. Now when I wake up and I have all this good energy, instead of going to share everybody else's business, I'm going to go work on mine.
Mhm.
Now, when I have all this good energy as a father, instead of seeking all these kids in need, I'm gonna go talk to my kids. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? I'm gonna put it home first, and then I'm gonna take it to the world. And if you've been a giver your whole life, that's uncomfortable. That it
Yeah.
should be. You know what I mean? These are the opposites of the world. I think the people that worry the most if they're being a good parent or not are the best parents. The ones that are just like, oh, I got it. You might not be doing what you think you are. But if you wake up like, man, do I spend enough time with my
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah.
That's the sign of a good parent to me. You know what I mean? So these have to start to be the ways we look at ourselves, but we have so many words that are associated with negativity. We have so many feelings that are associated with regret and negativity. I don't believe in all that. A feeling is a feeling. You know what I mean? So yes,
Mhm.
I check some of my feelings, but sometimes I do look out there and it's bittersweet being a parent. I didn't get a lot of the things I give my kids as a kid. So when we go on certain trips and I tell them certain things, it's that instant that I'm like, man, this would have been nice when I was a kid. But I have to check myself and I remind myself this is their childhood. I had mine.
Yeah.
We're all still children. The kid in us is all still in there. It's all still
It
needs
is.
attention. But I'm a grown man now. They're a
Mhm.
child. They have their innocence still. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I was forced to grow up quickly because I was aware of my surroundings. I was aware of, okay, these two people tell each other, they love each other, but I don't like how they treat each other. I don't like how they talk to each other. I don't like how, one of them is left feeling after they interact with each other.
Yeah.
I don't want that for my relationship. And that's what I took from it. I don't like this parenting. I don't like, so instead of me coming for them, I grew up with I'm not going to make my kids feel this way. So to me, that's the magic. It's taking that unfavorable situation and now painting it how you want to paint it instead of just accepting whatever someone told you it was. You know what I mean? And that's a constant journey. That's the hard part. That's why people are so miserable. That's why they're so against each other, because they just want to be healed. But
Yeah.
this is a healing process, is a
Experience.
healing
Yeah.
journey. It never stops. It never stops. And when we have that moment, we've done all this work and it hasn't played out the way we want it to play out, is usually when we take steps backwards. When we still just enter the world and hoping the door open, hold the door open just because I'm holding the door, because this is what I do, this is who I am. I've decided that. I tell this lady, yo, good morning. You look nice today. I decided I'm that person. I'm not doing this because of what I can get in return. I'm not doing this because people don't do it for me. I'm doing this because I identified the world will be a better place with it. So
Hmm.
instead of me expecting all of y'all to do it, why don't I do it? Why can't I be that person? You know what I mean? And that shaped my life. I became the man that I was calling out for as a child, the role model, the mentor, the man I wanted to look up to, the superhero. As boys, we want that. You know what I mean? We want someone to model our lives after. So
Hmm.
once I realized no one's ever going to come, and it's because I had to show up for myself. I had to look in the mirror and see that person. That's why the image was so vivid, but I was disconnected from it because I didn't give myself any grace. You know what I mean? I was heavy in church, I was heavy in other things. So every time I did something well, I gave somebody else the credit. I
Yeah.
was never telling me, yo, you did that. You finished that class. You
Hmm.
dealt with that bully. You told your crush you think she kind of cute. Like you did
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those little things started building up my confidence. The more I gave myself credit for it, I would go into my room. The kids is in their room. They crying. I'm like, okay, you told them the hard news, but you told them with love. I think you did a good thing. Don't feel bad about that. And still go back in there and hug them and tell them you love them. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Hmm.
And still make sure dinner's on the table. Still make sure you get them up in the morning. And it's easy for us as humans sometimes to resent people we feel are hurting us. And that grace is, we got to separate ourselves from that hurt. They're not trying to hurt you, they're hurting as well. You're just in
Hmm.
close proximity of their implosion.
Yeah.
But they weren't trying to hurt you. They didn't want your things to fall apart. You know what I mean? A lot of times their guilt is that they couldn't be good enough for us, that they couldn't aid us. So I
Hmm.
always try to lead. I always tell that grace. I always tell my kids, my loved ones, like, you're amazing. You know what I mean? You're better than what you think you are. You're doing more than what you think you are. And you're going to continue to do more. And this, how you're feeling right now, is the moment. Be present. But my favorite saying in the world is, this too shall pass. And that's the good and the bad. So don't get caught up in what is. You know what I mean? Be present, be grounded, and look forward to what can be. And once you start to live life like that, you become that. So a lot of these people are just projecting all the hurt and trauma they're holding on to. Me, I can do edibles and drink and do mushrooms because I don't have any skeletons in my closet. I heal that stuff because I address it. I check myself before anyone else can tell me about my stuff stinking. I check myself.
Yeah.
That's my responsibility. So now my relationships prosper because all my friends don't have to constantly keep telling me, bro, you shouldn't be spending money like that. Bro, you're drinking too much. Yo, this is your fifth girlfriend this month. You all right? You know what
Hmm.
I mean? I
Yeah.
I check myself in those manners. So now the biggest reciprocation is, yes, I did that for me, but I did that for y'all too. So now you don't have to check me. So now you don't have to be uncomfortable for me. So now I don't have to trigger you. And
Mm.
that's the biggest part of love. That's the biggest part of staying healthy. It's not eating healthy, it's not living healthy. The easiest way to stay healthy is not poisoning yourself.
Yeah.
And we do that every single day without understanding what we're doing. We call ourselves fat and ugly and stupid. That's when I
Hmm.
get hot. Like, stop talking to yourself like that. I don't talk to myself like that. I talk to myself
Mm-mm.
with love and respect. I'm a human being. So I can't demand everyone else to respect me, and I'm talking to myself like I'm nothing. You know what I mean? I talk to myself like a king, like a god, because that's what I am. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to change my mental state. I'm here to change the world around me. And that comes with changing our mindset. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So as we start to change our mindset, as we start to grow, we realize this is still a form of parenting and being in relationships, because your kids is always watching. They always ear hustling. Your spouse can feel your energy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So yeah, they may, to you givers, all of us givers out there, it may feel like selfish acts, taking care of yourself, but really this is going to help you take care of everybody else.
It will. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
did.
It's a hard truth.
Yeah, it's a hard truth.
It's
Um,
not the sucker, it's the medicine. It goes down hard, but
no,
it's good for
I
you.
feel like that it pairs really tightly with mental health because you have to take care of yourself before you can be good for anyone else. And if you're fighting those, those things or those demons or depression or whatever it is you have going on, the first step is know that you're not alone. And the second step is know that it can change.
Yes.
Whether, if it needs medication or redirective of pathways in
Yeah.
the brain. Like you said, the self talk, that's something that they taught us in our classes. It was very heavy on self talk of how are you supposed to have anyone respect you if you're not respecting yourself. And I definitely had to re-trigger pathways in my brain to understand why I wasn't talking nice to myself.
Hmm.
And then, make myself talk nice to myself because now I talk really nice to myself.
Yay.
But, of what caused it to make me not want to. So what were those things that I was dealing with, those demons? And and it's ugly. There's a meme out there and it shows what like a spiritual awakening, what people feel like it is, and it's like all peaceful and they're like meditating and
Yeah.
everything, and then it switches and it's like a person blindfolded with a baseball bat and they're just like swinging in the dark. It just like traumas and unlearned behaviors and like all these things, and I'm like, yes, that is 100% it, 100% it. And so it's just, you're trying to stay alive with your emotional self. And you don't want to be that person that, at least I don't want to be that person that's, coming down on someone or making them feel less. I hope that we can all build each other up and just, as a community, be there for each other, like you were saying, and how
Yeah.
much of a difference it would make if we were backing each other up. Imagine if, our kids got in a fight, okay?
Hmm.
And both parents were like, you two need to talk it out. We're not even going to get into it. Just go talk it
Yeah.
out. And they talk it out, whether it's in front of you or, you, of course, you don't let things get physical or anything like that. But,
Right, right, right.
you force them to talk it out. Like, go talk it out. If you have to supervise, go do it. Um, we have to take those learning moments because they mean so much. And
Yeah.
it helps both the child and the parent, and there's a trust that comes with it, and it's a beautiful thing if you can get it flowing.
I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
And I think that pathway will heal a lot of the trauma that we're dealing with this day and age. I think
Mhm.
a lot of it is behind suppressed emotions. And
Yes.
one of my favorite quotes I tell people is, we're getting to the point where our emotions are so suppressed, we're starting to hurt ourselves just to feel something, because we
Mhm.
haven't felt in so long.
Yeah.
So we inflict pain to make sure we're still alive, to check our pulse, to make sure we're not zombies. You know what I mean? And we should be feeling every day. Feel the wind. Feel the energy from two people having a conversation. Go around, feel people being in love. Feel
Mhm.
someone that's sad. You know what I mean? We should be feeling every day, and we should be analyzing and addressing these feelings. That should be the first conversations we have. So I think we're on a beautiful path. I think I give us a lot of kudos, our generation. We're the golden age. We grew up without technology. Now we actively run it. So I think it took for us to come into this world. I think we bring a lot of positivity into parenting, entrepreneurship, self love, and self care. So now it's our part to, a thing that past generations I think had a big trouble with, is putting that lesson in and letting go. Like when they say letting go and letting God, like, you cannot control someone's growth. You can't control their
Mhm.
healing. You can give them the game. You can give them love and support, but you don't pick the day that they change. You don't pick how they change. So we have to let go. We have to let go of this idea that relationships should look how we need them to look and love looks how only we want it to look. There's a spectrum. And once we appreciate every single part of that spectrum, we can come together. But there's too many people in the spectrum not being accounted for. And then there's
Mhm.
other ones being over glorified,
Mhm.
and there's other ones being demonized. So once we can look at everything as is instead of good or bad, you know what I mean? I think that's when we start to make the positive changes as a group. We're making it as individuals. I'm super proud. I'm proud of our people. I'm proud of
Mhm.
our generation, people around our age. I think we handle pain with grace. We handle trauma with grace. And I think the rest of the world's watching us right now. They're seeing what we're going to do next. They're seeing, these next steps we're going to take because we're the ones running the world right now. We're the
Yeah.
ones whose businesses and ideas are about to be in the next 50 years, and
Mhm.
then it'll be our kids. You know what I mean? So I'm pleased. We have a lot of work to do as a whole, but I'm pleased. I'm pleased that we can talk about mental health now because this is new.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? It's very new. So this was amazing. This was an excellent conversation. I'm grateful that we were able to do this. I'm grateful that you came out. I learned a lot about you. So that was wonderful. Is there anything you want to leave the people with? Some words of wisdom, words of love, kindness, anything you got?
Yeah. I think the last thing that I would like to say is don't let people from your past pay for things that people in your future never did to you.
Mm,
So just always keep looking forward and stay open,
yes,
because there's new friends out there, new relationships. Um, there's lots of people who weren't successful till they're 50 or 80 even.
yes, yes.
There's, just keep going, keep striving, because it matters, because you matter.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Can you tell everybody where they can find you at your social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at naturallyliz11, and my business is called Wildflower and Flora, and my link is in the bio.
Hey, well, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day and wonderful life. Keep doing what you're doing, spreading that love and that sunshine.
Thanks, man. You too.
All right, peace. We'll see y'all
Thanks.
later.
See ya.
Bye.